Video I will be making my first full prediction for 2024, including the presidential, Senate, and governor elections. I will not be doing the House because it will take too long, but without further ado, let's get right into today's prediction. Now, first let's start by discussing the presidential election here. So I'm not going to make any candidate assumptions because, well, that's up to be decided, but I'm just going to do a generic Republican versus a generic Democrat. Those Republicans or Democrats could be literally anyone. So on the safe Democratic side, I do have the state of California, Hawaii, Maryland, a District of Columbia, Massachusetts, Vermont, and the state of New York, and Maine's 1st District. So those are states that of 114 electoral votes that I will give to the Democratic Party. Now for the Republican Party, I will give them Idaho, Utah, Wyoming, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, the state of Nebraska and its at-large vote, the 3rd District, the 1st District, the state of Kansas, the state of Oklahoma, the state of Arkansas, the state of Louisiana, the state of Mississippi, the state of Alabama, the state of Tennessee, the state of Kentucky, the state of West Virginia, the state of Missouri, and the state of Indiana, as well as the states of Alaska and South Carolina. I did erase a few Democratic states that were safe in 2020 that I don't think will be safe in 2024, and I did add the 3 states of Kansas, Alaska, and South Carolina, which were likely in 2020 on the Republican column, which do give the Republicans a narrow edge to start with. While for the Democratic Party, they have a ton of likely states: Oregon, Washington, the state of Illinois, the state of Connecticut, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Delaware, and I think that's pretty much it. The state of Colorado, and I think the state of Virginia. So, looking at all of these states, these likely states are not really going to be competitive, but they're not going to be really competitive on the fact that they're going to be contested, but their margins will be slightly closer. That being said, I will be shocked if any of one of these states do end up flipping to the other political party. For Republican likely states, I have Iowa, Ohio. Both states Trump was able to win by 8 points, so it shouldn't be too surprising. Also, Maine's 2nd District in the likely Republican column, Trump also won the state by 7.1 points, as well as that state Texas. The state was a little bit closer in Trump plus 5.6, but he did end up carrying it by over 5 points. I know it's a detrending state, but just given the national environment, I think the Democrats should still end up losing by over 5 points. I also think the state of Florida will go to the Republicans. This is the first, I guess, key race hold for the Republicans, as well as the state of Texas. I think Florida, with the state and those Hispanic voters trending more Republican, I think Florida will end up being likely Republican. North Carolina as well, I do think will go in the likely Republican column. Given the national environment, the state is not really trending in either direction, but it may be trending a little bit Democratic, but yeah, the national environment is enough to put it in the likely column. And yeah, I think those are pretty much speaking the likely states for the Republican Party. So the Republicans have held every single state they held in 2020, with no exception, actually gained 3 electoral votes due to the census here. So now for the lean states. The lean states I wouldn't be super confident in, but I think most of these states I still would be pretty surprised if they went for the other political party. So for the Democratic states, I will be pretty shocked if they went to the other political party. The states of New Mexico and Maine, I think those states won't flip. They might be more competitive, and I think they will be more competitive. They will be within 5 points, but both of those states I'll be super shocked if they actually went Republican. Because looking at the 2020 presidential election results, Maine went to Joe Biden by 9 points, and the state of New Mexico went to Biden by almost 11 points. So it will be pretty much a shock if the Democrats end up losing either of those races. Now for the Republican Party, I think I'll be in quite a bit of shock if the Democrats end up pulling up Wisconsin yet again. Biden barely won the state of Wisconsin in 2020 by a margin of 0.7 percentage points, less than that actually. So it was an exceptionally close race. It was 0.63%. Had the Democratic turnout be slightly lower in Milwaukee or Dane, Trump would have likely won the state, but he did not. So yeah, Wisconsin should still go for the what I think go for the Republicans. The other state I'm pretty confident in is the state of Arizona. Arizona, Biden, he lost the state. He won the state very narrowly. He won Maricopa County, which is probably why he won the state. and it was by 12,000 votes. It was by 0.3%. Given the national environment, I just don't think the Democrats will be able to hold that state. And yeah, so the final states will be the most competitive states/districts in the entire map. Let's start by the state of Nevada, which I will narrowly go to the Republicans. The state has actually trended Republican in 2020 compared to 2016, but I still think, but given that, I think given the national environment, the Republicans should be able to win Nevada. Georgia will also be a close call, but I think the Republicans narrowly win the state of Georgia, considering Biden only won the state by 12,000 votes. I know the Atlanta suburbs may trend more Democratic as well, but some of these African American Black areas are losing population. And some rural areas, I think Republicans still have a little bit of room to gain, so possibly they could still end up winning the state, and they think they will. Now for Democrats, a bit of silver lining here because the Republicans have already won the presidency, according to my projections. Minnesota will go Democrat. I think it's pretty obvious. At this point, the state is not necessarily trending Republican, although definitely be closer. I think the Democrats just have a very strong appeal in the Minneapolis suburbs. Those areas are going to give the Democrats the victory there. The state of Michigan as well, I think it might be tilt, it might be lean. I think I'll just put it as tilt to be, more conservative on my projection here. Michigan went to Biden by 3, but given the national environment, it's probably not going to be enough. Similarly in Pennsylvania here, Biden was the Scranton boy, as they call it, but really, if Biden's in the presidency for 4 years, no matter who is the Democratic nominee, I think they will end up losing Pennsylvania. Going to Nebraska, 2nd district. Given the redistricting, the district is 3 points more Republican. Although Biden did win the district by 6, just given the national environment and the district being slightly more Republican leaning, I think it will just be enough for the Democrats to end up losing the district. I think for the state of New Hampshire, this one will be exceptionally close here. I think that the state is really didn't like Trump, but it might like some candidate like DeSantis. So I think in the end, DeSantis could still end up narrowly winning New Hampshire, though if it's Trump, I'd be a little bit more hesitant. So yeah, that concludes the map, 317 to 221. Now going to the Senate. Again, it says 0-0. That's just because we don't know how 2022 will shape out yet. So yeah. First up, I'm going to go for the safe states for both parties. I think I might not really characterize the state of Washington. The state of California, I definitely will. The state of Hawaii, the state of New York, the state of Massachusetts, the state of Connecticut, Rhode Island. Vermont has an independent, but that independent is Bernie Sanders. Angus King as well, I'm going to label them as safe Democrat. Maryland and the state of Delaware, those states will be safe for the Democratic Party. For the Republican Party, I do have the states of Wyoming, Utah, Nebraska, North Dakota, Missouri, Tennessee, Indiana, and the state of Mississippi. Those states will be safe on the Republican column. This basically gets them really close to the Senate, basically, because the Republicans likely will have a very good year in 2022 and will likely have a pretty good year in 2024. So that's my safe states for both parties. Now the likely Democratic states, Washington, not going to go Republican. It might be slightly more competitive than a 15-point margin, but it's going to go Democrat. Similarly, in New Jersey, Obama Denzos, I believe that's his name there. This race was actually contested. Oh, Robert Medenzos, sorry here. So he only won by 11 points in a more Democratic state. You would typically speaking expect a little bit more of a Democratic margin, but many results showed this race at even lean Democrat or possibly even tilt Democrat, so he actually overperformed expectations a little bit. I think given that, you wouldn't expect him to have a competitive race. You wouldn't expect this race to be super competitive, though the margin will be a little bit closer. So yeah, we also have the state of Minnesota here. Amy Klobuchar really well liked, won her last election by 25 points. not going to be really close there. New Mexico, I believe there was a third-party candidate, Gary Johnson, who took away 15.4% of the vote, likely were mostly Republican voters, and that's why I think this race will definitely be likely not safe for a Democratic candidate there. The state of Virginia, it could also be safe here, given who the candidate is. The candidate is, I believe, Tim Kaine, won by 16, but given the national environment, probably slightly closer. Though it's not going to be closer by 8. I mean, it's not really going to be contentious in any means. Now going to the states that I think those are the only likely Democratic states, but they do have a Senate advantage over the Republican Party. I think Texas, very well. I think Beto O'Rourke has become more extreme on things like gun control, and that's probably going to hurt him in the state of Texas. Similarly, in Florida, the race was very close between the Democrat and the Republican, only decided by 0.1% or 0.2% between Rick Scott and Bill Nelson. Again, Florida basically been close in the entire history, and still right now this is still a closer state, though the state is trending more Republican, and that's why I'm going to put it as likely Republican. Look at some of these other races here. Look at some of the other races. I would have West Virginia honestly going to being a likely Republican seat. Joe Manchin is actually polling ahead in the polls, but I think in 2024, though, he'll lose a bit leverage as the Republicans are likely going to gain control of the Senate, so it wouldn't matter for his filibuster vote, and that's why I think he's going to drop in some polling. In the state of Montana, I do expect this race to be between likely and likely. I'm going to put it as likely, just because Jon Tester really was in a fight for his life. He never won by a large margin. He won his first election by less than a point. And given the the diversion between the Democrats and the Republicans, I think it's pretty much going to go to the Republican Party here. Now for the final states, those states will be the lean and tilt states. The lean Republican states, there will be 2. Ohio, another flip. I think this is the 3rd Republican flip. Democrats have not flipped a single Senate seat. The state of Ohio here, Sherrod Brown, going to do decently well. It could actually be tilt, because he is a pretty popular incumbent there in the state of Ohio, but I just don't think he's going to end up pulling this race. Jim Renacci, who was running for governors in the primary last to Mike DeWine. I mean, he did not campaign very well, honestly. He barely even campaigned, and that's why he lost by 7 points. Had he campaigned and had the Republicans dedicated more funds, Sherrod Brown's race would have been far closer. So, given that, and given the 2024 environment will be much different from 2018, I think it's pretty evident to me that Sherrod Brown will end up losing re-election. The other state is Kristen Sinema. Kristen Sinema may be appeasing some Republican voters, but in the end, they're just not going to turn out for her. Like, if you have a Republican and a Democrat, you're still going to choose a Republican if you're a Republican voter. Similarly, but Kristen Sinema, although he's a Democrat, people just don't like her, and that's really going to hurt him in the state of Arizona. And that's why I think, just look at her approval rating, Democrats, she was actually, previously speaking, a Green Party candidate, was one of the most progressive members of the Arizona House, House delegation in the state of Arizona, now very moderate, really. And yeah, so Kristen Sinema, I just don't think will end up appeasing many Democrats and end up losing. She may even lose a primary, though even if she lost it, there will not be an incumbency advantage for the Democratic Party, so yeah. Now for the Democratic Party, their lean seats, I'm going to give Michigan and Pennsylvania to the Democrats. Although the presidential level, these states will be closer, I just don't, these states will likely go Republican, as this map showed. I still think the Democrats will be able to hold both of those Senate races. The final seats are tilt seats. Let's start with the state of Wisconsin. I think the incumbent there are still decently strong, won by 11 points. I think when you're winning by 11 points, a swing state Tammy Baldwin did, I think you're pretty secured for a victory here. Now going to the final state, the state of Nevada. I mean, the Democratic incumbent there did not win by a huge margin. Jackie Rosen won by 5. Not a bad margin against the Hillary incumbent, but still not the largest margin, and a margin that will be comfortable for me to say, okay, this Democrat is likely going to win re-election. That's not exactly the largest of all margins. Apparently, we're going to cover the governor elections. Let's go to the... Wait, what? They don't even have the governors? Are you kidding me? Alright, whatever. Damn. Anyways, I'm just gonna go, I guess, state by state. It's not gonna matter that much. So, first up, the state of Washington. I think the race may be slightly more competitive given Washington's governor's race. We're gonna have to go to the Washington page. It is quite annoying, but whatever. In the Washington race here, let me see. Washington in its governor's race, yeah, Jay and Inslee only won by 13. So, if you're winning by 13 in a more Democratic favoring environment, I'm just gonna have to leave this race as likely. Utah's probably gonna be safe, given that Utah is a pretty safe state for the Republican Party in general. Now, going to say Montana here. The Democrat there, God goodness, I actually forgot his name here. In the state of Montana, the governor decided to run for Senate. Alright, so Steve Daines defeats Steve Bullock, the incumbent governor at the time, by 10 points. And his lieutenant governor ended up losing by I believe, 13 points. So Greg Gianforte won against Mike Cooney. This race was expected to be far closer. It was not even mildly competitive in the end. Greg Gianforte was able to win, and therefore he's going to win by a likely margin. North Dakota will not be even close. Missouri is expected to be close. It wasn't really close. Similarly, in Indiana, the race wasn't expected to be close at any point in the campaign, but Indiana, it's going to be a safe state for the Republican Party. The state of Vermont and the state of New Hampshire, both of those races are actually up in 2024. They have 2-year terms where their governors, not 4, so both of those races are going to be safe Republican, given their popular incumbents, Phil Scott, and for New Hampshire, it's going to be Chris Sununu. For Delaware, I don't think that's going to be too shocking. West Virginia, yeah, safe Republican. The only state that really is contentious is the state of North Carolina, and this race will actually be very close. This race was actually in many polls expected to be a likely margin for Roy Cooper. Roy Cooper only won by 3 points. Now, it's not necessarily the best word to say only. It was still a very impressive margin for a Democrat in a state like North Carolina, but still, it was not a margin that was super impressive. And really something I want to be talking about is that in the state of North Carolina, the turnout for the Democrats on the Senate, on the presidential level, and on the governor's level was actually quite similar, which is a really good thing for Roy Cooper, and actually higher than the Senate level. So that means many voters who may not be engaged in other races may actually vote for someone like Roy Cooper. That being said, the national environment is just not for him, and given that, oops, oh my word, sorry guys, I'm messing a lot of things up, sorry, I really mean it, damn. Anyways, guys, I'm so sorry, but I just ended up messing a lot of things up. Anyways, let's just quickly fill in these races. Ignore these numbers. These numbers are not accurate at all. But yeah, the state of North Carolina, I still think, though, that in the end, Roy Cooper should end up winning in this race, given that he is still a very popular Democrat. I think it's going to be very close. It's going to be a tight margin, but in the end, Democrats are probably going to hold up to the state of North Carolina. Thanks for watching today's video. Be sure to like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thanks for watching today's video. Be sure to watch my next video, and bye. Thanks for watching. Have a nice day. Bye.